Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to the digestive system. We have followed the food most of the way through the digestive system, from the mouth to the esophagus to the stomach to the small intestine. We kind of got to pause right here and talk about the stuff that gets added. Remember, the stomach adds stomach acid, adds a protease to that acidic chyme. The chyme then comes out of the stomach and goes into the first part of the small intestine called the duodenum. The pancreas will release pancreatic juice, which contains a whole bunch of stuff. It's got proteases, it's got amylases, it's got lipases. It has sodium bicarbonate for neutralizing the acid to turn that acidic chyme into chyme. The liver releases bile, and what bile does is bile makes it easier to digest fat by taking big droplets of fat and turning it into small droplets of fat. It does not, pay attention and listen, bile doesn't digest fat. What it does is it makes it easier to digest fat. From the small intestine, we finish chemical digestion and we absorb it, the food into my bloodstream. Then there's going to be stuff left behind, and all that liquid that's left behind. That makes it to my large intestine. Large intestine's job is to reclaim that water and to store and compact feces until we're ready to get rid of it. The first part of the large intestine is called the cecum. It's not terribly long. It's about so long. It has connected to it this structure called an appendix. The appendix's name is really the vermiform appendix. Vermi means worm. Vermiform means worm-shaped. It's like a little worm that hangs off the bottom of your large intestine. The vermiform appendix's job, well, it depends on the animal as to what its purpose is. In us, it has a limited purpose. In humans, the use is, it is basically a haven. It's basically a safe room for bacteria. And when you hear bacteria, you think bad, but remember, not all bacteria are bad. The bacteria that you have in your digestive system is good and is helpful, and we need it. If your body gets taken over by some bad bacterium, we talked about what happens when you get diarrhea last time, that the intestine got invaded by something, and so to protect itself, it decided to flush everything out the back end, and so you had this terrible diarrhea. Well, now you've got to recolonize your digestive system with those good bacteria that are supposed to be in there. And where those good bacteria come from is they come from that appendix. The appendix's job in humans is to be a safe haven for bacteria. Other animals, they have an appendix too, and that appendix is for breaking down complex plant matter. And the reason why our appendix doesn't do that is because we don't eat complex plant matter. And you say, well, I eat salads, I eat lettuce, I eat all kinds of plant matter. Right, but that's not complex plant matter. It doesn't have a significant woody portion. It doesn't have a significant cellulose portion. That cellulose is the stuff that's difficult to digest. Animals can't digest cellulose, but most animals have bacteria in their gut that will help it to break down cellulose. But it's all about breaking apart those difficult cell walls. That's what the job of the appendix is. It's basically a digester. It's a place to hold that complex plant matter to allow those bacteria to break down and to digest those plant cell walls to make the plants more nutritious. So when you've got two different animals, if you've got a herbivore and a carnivore, herbivores have really long digestive systems because digesting plant matter is difficult, and so a longer digestive system gives you more time. Carnivores have very short digestive systems because meat is easy to digest. Because meat is easy to digest, they don't need a super long digestive system to get every last drop of energy out of the meat because meat is full of energy. Here we see a human digestive system, just to give you some frames of reference. Here's the bottom of the stomach right here. There's that pancreas we were talking about. This little bit right there is that first section of the small intestine called the duodenum that we talked about. This is my small intestine, and the small intestine attaches between the stomach and the large intestine. the union between the small and large intestines happens right here. You can't see it so well in this picture, so that's why it's been blown up over here. So that last bit of chyme is going to come from the small intestine and is going to drop into this very first section of the large intestine called the cecum. This is the very bottom little bit right here. Attached to that cecum is that vermiform appendix, that worm-shaped appendix. And you can see there's a little opening to it right there. Right? Well, this is a human digestive system. Chyme comes in, it's going to make its way through the large intestine until ultimately it is expelled. All the time it's going through this large intestine, remember, the water is being reclaimed so that we don't, poop out a gallon of fluid every day. Here we see a comparison between a carnivore's digestive system and an herbivore's digestive system. Stomach is basically the same, but the small intestine is a little bit longer in the carnivore, but look at how long the large intestine is. Not very long, not nearly as long as you compare it to the herbivore, and then look at the length of this cecum. This is basically the overgrowth, essentially, a huge appendix. Very small on a carnivore because carnivores don't eat complex plant matter. Koala bears eat nothing but leaves. They eat nothing but complex plant matter, and therefore they need a really long digestive system because leaves don't have that much energy in them. They're not very nutritious. That's why, A, carnivores eat all day long, and B, why their digestive systems are so big and complex so that they can get as much energy out of the food that they eat because plant matter doesn't have a lot of energy in it, so you have to eat a lot of it. We've already talked about crops. Some animals have very complicated digestive systems, like ruminants. A perfect example of a ruminant is a cow. Cows and their relatives. They've got a 4-chambered stomach. They have very complicated digestive systems, and the reason why, we just said a minute ago. Why is their digestive system so complicated? Because A, they're eating complex plant matter. If you're eating something complicated, you need a complicated system to break it down. And B, because there's not that much energy in plants. There's not that much energy in grass. So you need a really big, complicated digestive system to get energy out, to get as much energy out as you can. 4-chambered stomach in ruminants for breaking down tough cellulose. We already said they have bacteria that live in their gut that help them to do that, to make the nutrients usable. Cows actually chew their food twice. They chew it the first time and they bring it in, and then it goes to the first chamber of their stomach, and they'll sit there for a while. And then when they're done eating grass, have you ever heard the phrase chewing cud? Just sitting there chewing your cud? A cow will bring up a wad of partially digested grass, and then we'll chew it again. And we'll just sit there and grind on this lump of grass and then swallow it a second time. And so it goes in the next chamber of the stomach. Very complicated, very, very complicated digestive systems. What are humans supposed to eat? What should we eat? And the answer is you already know what you should eat. You already know what you should be eating. And the answer is you should be eating things that look the way they grew in the ground. I want you to imagine 2 plates of food. The first plate of food is an extra value meal from any fast food place you want to go to. Burger King, Dairy Queen, McDonald's, whatever. You got a hamburger, you got French fries, and you've got a Coke. Okay? The second plate is what Granny and Pawpaw eat for Sunday dinner. What's on that second plate? Well, there might be some fried chicken or maybe a fried pork chop. There's probably some greens. There might be some black-eyed peas. There might be some cornbread. Might be mac and cheese. Might be some green beans. And then what are they drinking? Oh, they're probably drinking either milk or water, or maybe some sweet tea, something like that. Those two plates, which one do you know you should eat? You know you should eat that second plate. You know you should eat that plate that Granny and Papa have for Sunday dinner. After you eat that big extra value meal, how are you going to feel about 2 hours later? You're going to be starving again. And you know how many calories was in that extra value meal? If you got like a quarter pounder and a large fry and a large Coke, you got about 2,500 calories in that one meal. You know how many calories you should have in a day? A man should have about 2,000 calories a day, and a woman should have about 1,500 calories a day. And how many was in that quarter pounder and large fry and Coke? About 2,500 calories. It was more calories in one meal than a man needs all day. And how will you feel a couple hours after eating that? You're going to be hungry again, even though you had all those calories. The second plate, pork chop, greens, piece of cornbread, some green beans, and some sweet tea. How many calories are in all of that? Maybe 600. And the worst thing on the plate is the cornbread. That's the thing that has the most calories in it. Not the pork chop or the chicken leg or the greens or the green beans, but it's the cornbread that has the most calories in it. All right? And if you look at that plate, do the green beans look the way they looked when they were growing in the ground? Do they still look like green beans? Do the field peas or the black-eyed peas still look the way they looked when they came out of the shell? The greens, do they still look like leaves of plants? Does the pork chop still look like something that was cut off of an animal? Yes, 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 yes. How about the extra value meal? Does any of that look the way it was growing in the ground? The ketchup, the mustard, the meat, the cheese, the bun, Coke. Yeah, what kind of plants does Coke grow on? All right. You know what you should eat. You don't really need to be told what you should eat. You know what you should have. Most foods that taste really, really good are very, very calorically dense, and that's why they taste so good. But they're also very nutritionally void. They've got lots of calories, but not lots of anything else. Whereas the other plate is the other way around. It doesn't really have a lot of calories, but it does have a lot of nutrition in it. It's got all of the vitamins and minerals and bulk that your body wants and is looking for. And none of those things are in the extra value meal.